Today we're going to be talking about the importance of coaching, mentorship, and making sure to have a tailored real estate investing strategy that is right, not for just everyone, but for you. Hello everyone and welcome to the Property Hustle Show. My name is Andrew and today Ping and I are joined by a very special guest, Brooke Shang, who is a professional real estate investor. She's been doing real estate for the last 6 years and has achieved tremendous success in the industry. She has also written a book on how to achieve financial freedom the royal way, so make sure to check that out. And she is, of course, a coach and mentor with Trust Your Talent, who is specializing in making sure to tailor real estate investing strategies for you. So Brooke, really great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead. I did want to ask you something actually very fundamental. Why did you get into coaching?
Actually, my parents are both teachers. You grew up in Taiwan, there's a lot of cram school.
Yeah.
That's the background I grew up with. My dad owned a chain of cram schools, so I always knew education is important, being Asian. And I never thought I would be teaching, but I'm following his footsteps. He wrote a book too when I was in Taiwan. And ended up in teaching. And I actually realized I started to learn about public speaking this year. My focus is to learn about that. And then teaching, it is part of it. And it is an art. And I actually enjoy that. So part of it is giving back. I mean, it's not going to be the same as real estate, right? You're looking at it in a different way. The success is not how much equity you built, and teaching is how successful your students built.
The impact that you can have on people around you. Yeah.
Different things.
Maybe it's in the blood. If your family's been doing
Surprisingly.
it.
When did you start teaching or sharing the knowledge in real estate?
Actually very recent, 2020.
But that makes sense though, because actually I feel like in 2020 is when people really started to need it. People were doing all kinds of things and just freestyling everything. But I think people right now are turning to education because no one knows what to do. Right, and people need guidance from experienced people.
Right. So walk us through, let's say if I need a bit of guidance for real estate investing, I'm like brand new, I have a good job. And how does that process look like when I sign up for Trust Your Talent?
I would say it's a process like financial planning. So your planner will sit down with you and talk about how you want to do this throughout your journey. So same thing we talked about, what your goals are, where you are in life. So your curriculum will be set up differently. It's like choosing a major. However, it's more practical.
It's like a guidance counselor in high school or something, kind of.
You're investing in the education. You choose to do it. So it's different than I'm just like our friends. Just tell you to go through that path. It's who you are and where you are in life. And like you said, do you want to protect your wealth at this point, or do you still want to hustle?
I'm the student and I wanted to figure out a way to get out of my full-time job, and I'm willing to actually reduce a bit of hours, maybe bring it down to like part-time or casual, so that I have a little bit more time to dive into real estate. What advices would you give it to me? And I might say, Brooke, like I have maybe 50 to like 100K line of credit that I can actually utilize, and then I want to flip houses to grow that capital. What would be the steps? Or
it's very personal. So we do have a lot of tools, right? I think it's personality too. Even I know somebody who has millions. They never say they're rich. They always think somebody has 10 millions. Then their comfort level might be different. If your goal, say for example, side hustle, then look at the money you have right now and how much do you need to make up for that. Sometimes it's not even how much you make, it's your expenses. You might make 10,000 a month, you actually only need 5. However, I think when people mentally have the space to not worry about survival, then they don't have to really worry about life, what they really want to pursue. So even if you make 10,000, let's say your expenses is 5. Let's focus on get you that 5,000 first. So you don't have to worry about your job. You don't have to worry about your mortgages. Usually that's the starting point. And at the same time, I said it's personal. So we also do personality tests. We do a lot of different things to make sure you're guided on the right path.
Does that also help you filter whether or not you are the relationship for them?
So I think naturally people gravitate towards people of the same frequency, right? And the good thing is I'm with a group of investors. It's not just me. We follow the same path. We have the same mindset. Sometimes it's just a better fit depending on who's on the team that you happen to relate with more. A lot of the time, students also pick whose experience or whose path I do want to follow. That's a good thing about having a group of investors all together. It's not just me, it's everybody running together. So like you said, what if you start and you tell me, Brooke, this is how much I have, this is how much I make. And usually people start to think about real estate. They don't want to worry about money, right? So that's realistically think, do you really need that $10,000? Maybe you need 12. Maybe you're upside down every month. It's pretty simple. It's on my website too. Sometimes when I hand out my book, there's also a sheet. Just fill out how many wholesale, if that's what you want to focus on, you need. And each one, say, for example, makes 10,000. How many do you need to do? How frequently? If you're working still, how much time can you put into it? And then if you have a mentor, for sure, you'll run faster than figuring it out yourself.
That's, I think, one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of people have to overcome when they're making the decision. Do I need help? Do I need a coach? I mean, it's pretty simple when you think about it in terms of sports. Pretty implied why sometimes people need a coach. Sometimes people need help. Someone convincing themselves that they need a coach almost in life, because this really has largely what to do with it, is I think a big hurdle. Do you do any kind of convincing of somebody that they need that kind of help or that there's value add? Or do people come to you and they're already ready?
Have you heard the term when the student is ready, the teacher will show up? So if they don't want to do it, they wouldn't even approach us if they're not interested at all. The issue is sometimes that's what the mentors do. They check your blind spot for you. So sometimes if they don't see an issue in their life, it's our job to tell them, hey, this is what it is. However, if you're not ready, I'm not going to force you. At the same time, if you don't want some help, you wouldn't even reach out.
What if a student has an idea in mind? Like, for example, a lot of times when we're seeing real estate investors, passive is actually never passive, right?
Exactly.
Especially when you're trying to do wholesale house flipping. It's a very active business. And they have a bit of a wrong expectation because, like it's overly promoted that the passive income, like in real estate. How would you correct that expectation? Because let's say that if I'm coming to you and I'm saying, Brooke, like I want to do this, I'm ready to grind, 50, 100K is a line of credit that I can actually pull out. I'm trying to do this so that maybe in a year from now or 2 years from now, I don't have to actually get back to my full-time job and I can just live off my rental properties or something like that. Obviously, that all sounds good and it's achievable if I'm willing to put in the work. But some people that we see, they've been sold on that dream for so long that it's really hard to actually get them to take some actions.
Actually, as you're talking, I'm drawing graphs in my head. I'll just start one piece at a time. There are three buckets of income, right? Active, passive, and portfolio. When you're younger, you usually don't have equity or you couldn't find a money in the buy is also portfolio income. So when you're younger, perhaps you haven't built up the bucket yet. So we say you buy and sell to create capital. Then you use your capital to buy and hold to create wealth. As I said, there are three buckets. There's nothing wrong with having multiple streams of income. Just remember that the passive might just be part of it when you start. Having 50,000 is not the limitation. I'm sure you have investors coming to you saying, hey, I've seen you've done a few things. Can I do what you do? Or can I invest with you? So having no money is really never an issue. I get that when you don't have a portfolio, no experience, nobody will come to you or you don't see it yet. Of course, you have to put in some work, at least to learn to get started. Different strategies, some are active income. Fix and flip, yes, it's active income because after one project, you have to look for another one. However, it might give you a big bucket of capital to start, which is great. And when you say, I don't have any money, I'm young, I haven't worked that long, that's great. And actually, if you love flipping, you love renovating, do it. Even though if it's passive, you can still see the results and see the money coming in. Nothing wrong with that. And I focus a lot on lending right now. Not because I don't like the active work. I still enjoy that too. However, it's how you allocate your time. So Ping, you have a baby now. Wouldn't your wife want you more at home?
Yes, all the time.
If you don't have time, look for something more passive. If you do have the time and you love to look for deals, you love to see the results after flipping, definitely go for it.
That's a really good point because ever since I had a baby, like she doesn't actually need to tell me to go home, right? Before, like I would try to work as long as possible, like as long as I need. And now it's like 5 p.m. Like I look at my phone, this baby's face, I'm like, I want to go home. So even like 10 months before like we had a baby, like I started planning things out with my schedule, right? Because the priority changed. Like I knew that at the time that the baby arrives, I'm going to have to be home a lot more often, help out my wife and obviously the baby. And then all of a sudden I started thinking about the system strategy and even like the people that I need to onboard, right? And we actually made lots of changes with our current operation. It made the operation a lot more passive compared to before. Definitely priority will change the way you invest or the way you operate your business.
Yeah. And every investor is a business themselves, like you are. So we're also constantly pivoting and changing, right? Yeah, depending on where we are in life.
I do like the way that you're saying this largely because it actually sounds like very caring advice. It's not so much, this is what you got to do, where a lot of people who are trying to coach people, it's like they're always coaching on the extremes, right? Go big or go home or max out on the saving. But you are taking a very middle ground approach, which tries to understand the person. And it's almost the kind of advice you'd expect your parent to give you, to be honest, actually. Yeah. It seems like very wholesome advice. And to what you're saying, Ping, actually, it also wraps in the fact that sometimes people will adjust their work to their life instead of adjusting their life to their work.
Exactly.
Right?
That's a good way of putting it. putting it.
That's what often controls people, right? People focus so much on the work and the career, and they don't understand that you're working to support your life and the life that you are living, not living your life to support the job, right?
Yes.
Okay, we got to start putting these into fortune cookies.
I know, I know.
We have a new business.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the thing: work and life, it is an integration to each other. It's not a balance. It's really hard to do that, and that's why it's really important to always assess both sides and see that what actually works. When we're planning out our year, even a quarterly or monthly, like we need to make sure that both are actually in the calendar. It's not just work or life.
Did you ever hire a coach?
I did. So Tim is still my mentor. That's where I started my real estate journey. Even today, we still have a very close relationship. We have all the knowledge out there. I wouldn't tell a student, this deal is bad, don't do it. I have to let them know. I can't directly say no because they have to understand how to analyze it. And that's exactly what a mentor or coach is there for you to do.
As a new investor, let's say if I want to get into real estate, do you think marketing is a first skill set that I need to learn, or is it the real estate knowledge? Obviously, real estate knowledge is really important, but without knowing how to market yourself, people won't know or recognize exactly what you do. And that's going to be a limitation for raising
For
capital.
a lot of investors.
So which skill set would you pick first?
Just looking back, I think I did both at the same time.
Yeah.
Didn't do it separately. Even if in the beginning you don't know as many people, even talking within the group, right? When you go to networking, you're still marketing yourself. One of the things about writing a book is, yes, you don't have to talk to somebody for 4 hours or give them a 5-page resume. That's basically what I do. And then on the back is basically the summary. That's one of the marketing tools.
Yeah, it was like your business card got really big.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a source of credibility too. Not a lot of people are actually able to put all the knowledge or their expertise into one book. It's because a lot of times when we're thinking about a lot of information, right, it's very scattered. In order for us to put it into a book and easy to read for other people, it takes a lot of time to organize all the thoughts.
Yeah, would you consider yourself a trained coach?
I am a trained coach. By the way, I also had a coach for writing.
There you go.
Oh, you have a coach for everything.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
much.
no, but that's that good because people who buy a service need to, or people who give a service rather, need to also be buying that service. I feel in order to understand how to continually improve that service that they're giving. When people say, "Oh, I'm just going to talk to somebody else who's doing real estate," yes, you can go talk to them, but there's a big, profound difference between knowing somebody who's doing what you think you want to do and then somebody who is trained in helping you. Because the person who is doing what you want to do might not know how to help you. Helping someone is an art. If it's not done correctly, they might lead you astray.
I know your background is nursing. I'll just give you an example. Can you just do what you did without going to nursing school? Just have a conversation with somebody who's done it before.
I know the answer you're looking for. I feel like I could do a lot of those things, but not to the extent. No, you know what? Jokes aside. No, nursing did teach me a lot of very valuable things that I feel I wouldn't have been able to do had I not been exposed to that environment and the people.
And I also wouldn't just go to you to say, Andrew, I want to be a nurse now. Let's have a 4-hour conversation. Then I'm going to start to be a nurse. People expect that from real estate, though. They think they just watch a few shows. They just get a few deals done, and then they're real estate investors.
Yeah.
It's definitely not like that either.
Well, people get sold on the dream all too often.
Also, people have a wrong expectation that raising capital and deal sourcing is the only thing that's involved in real estate investing. What my mom taught me is that if you have money, you can buy, right? If you have money, you can invest in real estate. So buying real estate is not the hardest thing, right? It's the operation afterwards. How do you actually manage those risks? Finding deals is important, right? Being able to recognize what's an actual deal is also really important. But it's everything after that contributes to your actual ROI at the end. My mom actually, she's been investing since when she was in late 20s. She built like a not great or anything, but decent sized portfolio back in Taiwan. And then when we all moved to Canada, 2010, she wrote the number 20, and then she handed it up to me. It's just like, figure out how to get 20 tenants before you graduate school. So like, how do I do that? And then I'm pretty much being forced into real estate investing. At the time, I hated it, right? Because I had to. She literally would look at people walking on the street and just be like, hey, go talk to them, right? We got a unit that we can probably rent it. And then I'd be like, okay, let me go talk to them. Right, so
this is some real Tiger Mom stuff.
Yeah,
right?
no, I did a leasing. I did a project management for the basement renovation for one of our student rentals, and then she gave me some money to invest in one student rental that also requires some value adds. And that was all when I was in first year. I didn't like it at all. Right, when you're being forced to do something like it's just not fun. Fast forward to like 2014, 15, when I was doing the intern in engineering field. I look back, I'm like, doing that is so much more fun.
Looking at the piano here, it's like Asian parents tell you what to do. It's just luckily your mom told you to focus on real estate.
Do you find that there's a lot of cultural elements that maybe from some cultures you find that there's similarities aligning with business, right? Because I find that at least when Ping and I started talking, there's a lot of things from, I guess, Chinese culture that I find resonate very well into business, right? Certain philosophies, I guess. Some of them are safe, some of them are aggressive. Like I'm half Greek and I'm half Chinese. And I find that the philosophies are different in terms of how each of them will go about doing real estate investing. Like on the Greek side, more on the blue collar hands-on construction, that type of avenue. Whereas, on my mother's side, the Chinese side, it was more just like easy, simple, straightforward, don't bite off too many problems, right? Just buy simple rental property, rent it out, right? Go work a job. Do you find that that influences also your approach and what you might teach people?
Yes, definitely. Especially, when did you guys come to Canada?
I came to Canada 2008.
I was born here, but I grew up in Greece. So I came back to Canada like 2001.
So you had enough exposure outside of Canada in terms of different cultures.
Oh yeah, I think mentality-wise, we're probably a little foreign.
I'll give you an example. I think in general, at least the Asians I've worked with, everybody is somehow entrepreneurial in a sense. Want to start their own business or at least have something they can have control over. Not all of them are investment because a lot of businesses are hard work. They just buy a job. However, the work ethic is there. When I grew up, Taiwan was just starting to, like China today, starting to have a lot of business, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of factories that people started. So I saw that because I grew up with that and my parents did have their own businesses. As part of that, yes, that definitely helped. People here, I think you go through school. Mostly people look for a corporate job.
And also it's not as business friendly here, right? You get taxed a lot more, and starting a business, the upfront cost is actually a lot more in Canada as well. The population is not as many as Americans, right? Like Americans still like more than 10 times. So I did find like starting a business in Canada was extremely slow. It took a long time for us to grind to be able to get a certain size of clients. But again, like the reason why we were able to do that is literally because at the time when we met, we both had enough portfolio where it's feeding us a bit of a cash flow. It wasn't as difficult or challenging as the market right now. And that's why we're always curious to know that if a student come to you and obviously try to like figure out how to break into real estate market at this moment, the time is different.
It depends on exactly how much time you have. Because within the student body, there are people like you probably have some capital to start. And there are people who needs to hustle and they can spend more time and look for a deal.
They need to spend more time.
They need to spend more time. You're looking for that unicorn. In my book, I mentioned my first rental deal. It was 100 phone calls until I got one. If I constantly do that, it's hard to scale. So now I get more referrals. When I had that one deal, a lot of investors wanted to invest. So same thing. If you have capital, you use your capital. If you don't, doesn't matter. You have to know how to find a deal.
Are you still doing the rent-to-own program?
I'm still doing it. I don't actively advertise on. Back in the days, it was Kijiji. That was more popular. I think now Facebook Marketplace. So I don't put an ad there anymore, even for wholesalers. I understand not all the leads are great. So you do have to spend a lot of time filter everything out.
So for rent-to-own program, because rent-to-own program is obviously a lot different from BRRRR method, flip projects and all that stuff. There's not a lot of value add. And I just wanted to kind of get to know your process on rent-to-own because some people, they do find the buyers first, tenant buyer, and then they find the house that they want to do. Is that the right sequence for you as well?
That is how I do it. Find the tenant buyer first. The reason being, you know how many neighborhoods there are, and now you have kids. You don't just want to live in any neighborhood, not any school district, not anywhere that's far from your work. So tenant buyers usually want something very specific. So if you have a house, I do have leads to like wholesalers or houses on the market, people would be willing to offer up for rent to own. However, so far I haven't been able to match them up because of these reasons. What if somebody has a house in Richmond Hill, $800,000, $1 million? Some people want to be in Hamilton, just close to their parents, or some different needs. But I force you to go there because I happen to know somebody there. That's not going to work in general.
You usually find something that's completely finished, right? There's no renovation involved.
There's no renovation involved. It's different. They're not investors. They don't see money when they see the roof falling off.
I see.
I did attempt to do that, and happened to have a wholesaler in the neighborhood, the right neighborhood, and the right price range. However, they want an additional washroom and the stairs weren't finished. Then they didn't want to accept it.
It wouldn't work for them. How much is a natural appreciation that you will usually budget in your contract?
Every market is different. So in Alberta, I wouldn't appreciate as much. In Ontario, a couple years ago, that's the highest I've gone, 7%. At the time, the market was 10%, 20, 30%. They thought I was giving them a deal. Luckily, the price of those properties are still way higher than their contract price because we're in Southern Ontario. In Alberta, my recent rental just happened to be there, 3%, 4%. You just have to run the numbers and make sure it still works.
How many years?
Almost all of mine are 3. Some are 4. Majority are 3.
That's what you started with, right? When you started your real estate investing, that was your avenue, the rent-to-own deals.
I'm slightly different because my husband's still working. However, I do want to replace my working income just to make sure it works. When you want to replace your working income passively, you need something with good cash flow. That's why I focus on rent-to-own. And my husband didn't want us to use his qualification because we always plan to upgrade our home. So we need the mortgageability. That's why even though we had jobs, couldn't use our own qualification because we're building our home. That's why I got into rent to own. At the same time, I also converted a few duplexes because that's what everybody did at the time. I wanted to know how it works. Luckily, I wasn't very experienced. I found a pretty good team, so I worked out. One property, I had an investor who was my good friend, and came in to help me out because I found 3. They were all really good. I could only qualify 1 at a time. So that's where I brought my friend in. For the BRRRR, at first my intention was long-term hold. That's why we used our own money, didn't look for investor. Besides that one, however, life changes. My BRRRRs are shorter than all of my rent-to-owns. I sold all the duplexes within 3-4 years. I'll tell you why. Again, life changes because we're building our home. I'm thinking about which golden goose do I want to kill first.
Gotta eat.
Yeah. And yes, it's going to affect my portfolio and cash flow. However, my end goal is always to find our home and rebuild. So that it ended up killing those golden geese, because in Canada, actually it doesn't cash flow as well as I was hoping for. And we already refinanced.
And the truth is, honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing because when a lot of people are talking about BRRRR method, throughout their own portfolio, the things I'm thinking is that at some point you're going to get capped out, right? Number one. And second thing is there's not a lot of cash flow because you're over leveraged into the next property. So when something goes wrong, you're going to affect literally it's a chain of effect to your monthly payment. I always like the idea of flip 3, BRRRR 1, flip 3, BRRRR 1, because then, or even flip and then try to BRRRR commercial, because commercial properties doesn't have that kind of restriction on how much you can actually, the money out is not a
it's
problem.
Performance based, yeah.
It's
exactly.
Performance based, yeah.
Yeah, residential to me is if we're trying to BRRRR 1 or 2 units, at some point you're gonna run out of the resource.
You probably only have one that cash flow because the other ones are refinanced as the time goes on. That's strategy for some people because they hold it long enough, then they pay off the mortgage, then they have natural appreciation. However, if as investors your money can be used elsewhere, perform better, then definitely. However, it depends. For example, you can BRRRR a huge commercial building or an apartment. I would say if that's fitting your journey right now. And even for me, refinance for a building takes a very long time, especially today. Sure. And renovation takes a long time too. Can you sustain the debt servicing during this time? A lot of students coming in, they're new. They want to see results. They want to see the cash flow coming in. And if the BRRRR renovation takes longer, refinancing takes even longer now. Not just refinancing, just get your mortgage. Commercial mortgage will take some time. Can everybody sustain that? Or do they have a backup plan?
People always wonder how to actually make extra cash flow in today's market. What would your suggestions to them?
A few things people do is, if it's a bigger unit, of course they add or renovate or force appreciate. However, you have to really analyze it well. Also, fix and flip, you have to know how to analyze too because construction cost is higher, permits takes longer, even refinancing and mortgages takes a lot longer too. So like you said, people were hoping they could refinance and keep doing it. If refinancing is taking a year, what are you going to do? Can you really scale? So think about different things.
Would you recommend people to be a service provider for the investors first?
Service provider meaning?
Meaning you can do maybe leasing service, you can do the project management service for the investors. And
depends on the person. Not everybody is good with that job. I have quite a few property managers. I had really good ones. I would definitely recommend them. However, I had to go through a few to find a really, really good one. I see that not everybody would be fit for that.
That's good. You really do focus a lot on the person's needs. It's good for somebody to have a coach that will keep them in line like that and keep them checked. Like if you can recognize that somebody's just not cut out for it, sometimes you can maybe caution them against it, right? Or even people who right now, when you said you got to, which golden goose should I kill, right? Which one should I sell? For people who are in that mentality where they made a commitment to themselves, like I'm going to accumulate this many properties to reach my goal. Sometimes selling one of those properties before you hit that number might still be the path to your goal, but they're still locked in that mindset of you have to hold, right? And it might not be necessary to reach their goal. They can still get it and make it easier on themselves. People end up locking themselves in the mentality. So if you have somebody to check you, somebody who's working with you, and somebody who can take a step back and look at what you're doing, and that'll help you a lot.
And it's really not about how many properties we're holding right now. What if they don't cash flow? Why am I holding them? I don't even know how many doors I own right now or how many rent-to-owns. Some ended last year. So my cash flow reduced because now successfully closed, then I won't have the monthly cash flow anymore. So then I have to look for new deals, or however, that bucket of profit at sales still helped me. It's just that then I have to look for other deals if cash flow is what I focus on. If somebody is young, should they start to hustle? Maybe. Even if you're not good at construction like you guys are. My first few deals is wholesale rent-to-own deals because I find the deal, I package it. However, I don't have to pick up a hammer. That's still hustling. That's still wholesaling. It's just really what you're good at. People who are not good with people and piss off their tenant buyers, probably this is not for you.
We were talking to somebody recently who was really shining a light on the fact that people have the wrong idea of real estate investing. People think that it's very glamorous, that you can quickly get it to a point where it is going to pay you back, and not really take into account all the hard work. And people sometimes flex on social media online, and they mislead others to believe that it is way better, way easier than it actually is. This is why we call our social media platform Property Hustlers, because there is a lot of hustling that you need to do if you want to be with working properties in any area, right? So I feel that
we don't want people to subscribe to passive income too much in real estate. We want people to understand, hey, there's a lot of hustling that you need to do, right? And if you want to get into real estate, hustle, right?
Yeah.
Become a property hustlers, because that's how you can really advance in your life, right? Try to do a little bit more.
If that's what you're cut out for.
Even passive income, a lot of the times you have to learn how to do it, earn it. There's still work involved. And surprisingly, I found I'm pretty open about my failures when you say people flash what they have, because people can relate to you. Not too long ago, so end of September, I had to evict a tenant. I basically opened up about my journey, how long I waited and everything. Actually, a lot of people reached out. So I'm pretty honest about what happened. And in my book, I mentioned one of my first few deals, I lost $50,000 pretty quickly. And people could actually relate to that. At the same time, if there's something I learned from a rental deal in the end it succeeded, I share that too, because people like to see other people's success and they know it's achievable, right? You want to, yes, it's hard. However, it's not impossible.
Yeah, I think being authentic on social media right now, especially in 2023, is extremely important. It's way more important than showcasing or try to sell people the dream, because there's too many people doing that. Try to do the opposite, right? Be authentic, talk about some failures, talk about some lessons that we learned throughout the real estate journey. I think that's going to resonate with people a lot better.
People can tell if this is a true story or if you're authentic or something is in there. Intuitively, people can tell. Sometimes they don't point it out. Just like you mentioned, people are flashing what they have. At the same time, when people are reading it, you can kind of have a sense what's really going on.
When it sounds way too perfect. That's when you know something's wrong.
I always wonder about it. One of the things that I always found very frustrating, right? We've been doing real estate a long time, right? And the journey is long, it's difficult, but it does obviously pay off as long as you're willing to hold steady and not have unreasonable expectations about it. When you want to help people, I noticed that I wanted to encourage some of my friends, because I was reaping a lot of benefits from it. I'm starting to tell them, get into real estate, you should do this, even for simple tax purposes. A lot of them were making over $100,000, didn't own a house, and dual income, each making over $100K. You know how much taxes they're paying. They don't have any good shelters. And if they just bought a rental property, they can't seem to understand the idea that just because you buy in another city doesn't mean you can't write off your income when you do things with it, right? And simple things. They didn't start listening to me until I got a nicer car, right?
That's why agents all have good cars.
It makes an impression, right? But it's frustrating because people people, while people are flashing, understand why people are flashing, because it makes an impression on how people perceive you,
Yes.
right? And it gives you that conversation. But nothing changed. It was just now I decided, okay, actually the accountant told us that we should we should upgrade our vehicle. So we decided to do it because it would make financial sense. And then people started listening. So, but the thing is that a lot of people can fake that. A lot of people can just lease a car.
It's actually so cheap if you think about it. Like,
It really is.
yeah, like the $800 to $1,000 per month. That will get you a completely different image,
Credibility.
Yeah, and credibility. When sometimes when we hire an extra staff, that's easily 3-4K. People don't see what's involved in the operation, but the moment that you showcase or flash something, all of a sudden, like, you get the attention.
Yeah, but I would have thought it's oversaturated, right? Like people showing, their really nice cars and all this stuff and selling the dream. I imagine that there's got to be a real population that resonate with the idea of that I have reasonable expectations and I'm willing to put in reasonable work for reasonable results, as opposed to do this and you'll get rich.
It's good that everything is business focused, even when you buy a car. It's because of your business. Everything you do, you have a focus, and that's why you do it. And same thing, I'm building a new home in a nice area, and people are starting to think, okay, then actually, you know what? The funny thing is, we live in that neighborhood for a while, so my kids have friends there. They are even asking, so how do you afford to still live in your home, didn't sell it, and then build a new home at the same time? Because you don't have to say much. Just by what you're doing, people will ask you. Even your kids, paying one day, they will ask you that question. Because my son asked me, do we have mortgages? And I told him, yeah, and we have many. And then he said, how could you be comfortable with it? So I told him the story of when we bought our first home, in the neighborhood, which we're still in, 1,200 square foot. Tiny. We couldn't sleep at night because we had to take on a mortgage. However, now we're buying a much bigger home, then we have to come up with renovation costs, and we're a lot more comfortable. Guided him through why we're more comfortable, explained that we got a mortgage for 5%, inflation is 7%. If you don't get a mortgage, you're upside down. Why do you keep cash? As simple as that, something they could understand. So just by doing and showing people your path, I actually rarely advertise to my friends outside the circle of what we do. However, they realized things have changed when they see us. We travel a little bit more. We're really pretty frugal. I think I'm a coupon expert. Yeah, that's wholesaling because you're getting something cheaper than the market value.
Is there any, let's say, daily, I guess, routine that you do that kind of sets you apart from other people?
I think it's just constantly learning something new. When your kids are older, sometimes it's out of your control. If they fall off the stairs, they decided to switch their activities, you have to be flexible. I think unless you lose sleep, it's not up to you. Yes, certain things, read whenever I can. Now I have a lot more freedom because they can walk home by themselves and things like that. So reading is one thing. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I actually read very, very slow, even though I wrote.
I do have actually a question in the realm of parenting, because I've always wondered this and I've read other people's positions on it. Having kids and thinking about what you're going to instill in them, the values you're going to put in them, or the principles you're going to try to mold them with. How do you feel you're going to be able to balance that out with the things that you had as a result of your upbringing? Because you mentioned, you had to struggle. You had to climb up. You had something to climb up from, but you are actually providing a platform for your children to not need to climb from the same depth that you did. Do you find that actually proves as a bit of a disadvantage in some cases because they don't understand that struggle?
I definitely think so. I actually warn investors when they say, I want to provide my kid with a really good life so they don't have to struggle like I did. I think you're actually taking away their privilege to learn and to go through that. However, like you said, not just our parents, the previous generation, whatever they did, we don't have to farm in the morning. We can have spare time. So I don't expect them to do exactly the same thing we did. There's a technology there, right? So information and efficiency wise, they didn't have to suffer so much. I look at it as no matter where you start, you have to get higher. We're already starting them from here. And even I think immigrant parents, they were able to provide us with a different avenue to come to Canada. So financially, I knew we were at a very privileged level when we were younger compared to when they were young, no electricity, sponsorship from other countries. My dad was actually a lot older. He had me when he was 40. So he came from China with nothing. And he actually escaped with his school. He pretty much jumped this high. However, that's because he struggled. And my kid actually asked me, he said, if you set the bar too high, every generation should be better than the previous. It's actually harder for me. And like you said, we provided so much, then he doesn't have to go to a really hard program just to make money. Especially now, we understand that's not what we believe in anyways. However, I said, just pursue your dream. He's in a band with his friend, for example. If you want to be in a band, do it. Then all of a sudden, he's like, however, I don't want to give up what I have. That's so good. and even students, I ask them what their fears are. The biggest fear is to disappoint their parents, their kids, people they love. And now you have kids. No matter what they do, actually, I'm still going to love them the same. So why are you worried about them not loving you or they're disappointed? So I told him he loved basketball. And I've seen other kids pursuing basketball going to the States. Then I said, if you want to do that, definitely do it. He's not going to be at the top level. So we talked to the consultant, another coach, how to apply for it. And what's that called? I'm not even NCAA. For any professional sports, you usually go to college. So you go to the good college, then you become professional. I'm not athletic, but that's the path I just learned. Yeah. So he could do that because there's so many schools in the States. You might not be UCLA. However, if you go down the chain, for sure, you probably find something and you can spill on that path. So I asked him that. He's like, I still don't think I love it that much. Now I'm provided all the opportunities. So they still have to struggle and think about it.
The biggest struggle in this generation is always finding the direction, because previous generation, we actually won lottery by being able to come here. We are already so past the survival phase, right? But right now we're in a phase where everything's good, everything's comfortable. We're not worrying about the meals and all that stuff. But what's our passion? I think the expectation that I will have for my kid, which we'll assess it probably 10 years from now, is that I'm going to be telling Macy, my daughter, that if you say you're passionate about something, I want you to give 110%. It doesn't matter what it is. Just find something that you enjoy doing. If you haven't found that things, keep exploring as much as possible. But the moment that you commit to something, go 110%. Yeah.
What we're doing, if you can show example, that's how they assume that's the way people do things, because people work hard, put in their time, put in their effort.
It's so interesting to listen to this, because it does actually open also more and more questions, right? Because depending on the culture too, different cultures view things differently. Like, for example, I agree with what you're saying in terms of being able to instill principles. Always give your hardest, always give 100%. Whereas some people might say, oh, that's a lot of pressure to have onto a child, right? And maybe trying to impose your entrepreneurial mindset might, distract from something else that they may be, right? So there's a lot of things that, go into this and make you want to consider it.
We're actually the byproduct of how our mind works, right? It's everything is actually within. It's not the external factors.
I feel like I was privileged because I feel like my family gave me every possible advantage. Like, not in the sense of like we had money, right? But in the sense that my mom told me, she's just like, the difference between people who are wealthy and poor, it has nothing to do with what they have. It has to do with what they have in here, right? So wealth is a factor of the mind and not so much a factor of your surroundings, your environment, or what you have. Now, I know some people will say, yeah, I know, well, tell that to the people who are on this side of the world and they have these problems. Listen, I get that they're extremes, but this is like a general thing. But I realize even with that, when you have options, it becomes very difficult for you to just continue to push forward. Like, I think at some point I felt like I hit a point of financial stability relatively early in life, and I actually feel like that was one of the worst things or most difficult things to happen to my motivation. Having a goal of financial independence, you can strive towards it, hit it. Saying I need to pay rent, saying I need to pay my mortgage. These are immediate, tangible goals that you can go out and hit. But the minute you start to hit them and that is now done, you need to, in order to continue to progress, elevate your standard. And the minute you have options, like what you said your kid has, options, how do you decide?
Exactly.
Right? It's almost easier if you didn't have any options. You could just focus and go.
That's why a lot of young, successful artists are into drugs, and sometimes early success is probably not the best thing because, like you said, then what do I strive next? And same thing with setting goals. I actually haven't set goal for this year. I know everybody talk about that because like I reached my goal that I put in the book. I said, once you read these things, then that means I've reached my goal if the book is out and the house is there. At the same time, then you realize, okay, it's achievable. Did I set it too low? And then what should I do? And yes, once you hit the financial goal, then what's next? That's why I'm teaching too. So
it's going to be a best-selling book on Amazon. That's the next goal. We pay over 6 figure on coaching every single year. Well, we only started doing that 2 years ago, and it has helped us a lot in terms of business expansion because it really shortened the learning curve in many different areas. Whenever we need to figure something out, for example, like writing a book, I would never try to do this by myself. I will find a coach and then ask the coach, who do I need to hire? Right, to help me offload all the ideas, and who do I need to hire to actually write a book, so that I can, instead of me trying to do this and then read it, not liking it, improve it again, and do that again, like I can literally just find someone to provide me with the right guidance and then get that done maybe within 2 to 3 months.
Everything you're saying has actually been super insightful. It's really refreshing to hear the angle of which your advice is coming. It's very human, right? And there's definitely compassion in the coaching, which I think is critical, where I think a lot of people just lack it. It's too much rah, rah, rah instead of let's think about this. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what is the best way? Is it email, Instagram, social media? What is the best way for somebody to get in touch?
Trustyourtalent.ca is easy.
Yeah.
And Brooke Shang, there's only one Brooke Shang.
There is only one Brooke Shang.
There's not going to be a few when you search under Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's all me. My name is actually really unique for Chinese.
Brooke, very great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.